Move your bag, this isn't economy. Ma'am, we have rules in first class. That was the first thing out of flight attendant Heather Bishop's mouth. No greeting, no smile, just that cutting tone and an icy stare. She didn't know who she was talking to, and in 12 minutes she would be standing on the jet bridge unemployed. But right then all Heather saw was a black woman in a blazer and jeans placing her backpack beneath seat 1A. What she didn't realize was that woman Maya Jackson owned 20% of Pinnacle Airlines and held the title of CEO. What happened next would go viral in minutes, tear through TikTok and X like wildfire, and expose the rot that still lingers in our skies. Before we jump in, I want to know something. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. If you've ever boarded a flight and felt like you had to prove you belonged, this story is for you. Subscribe to the channel, and if you believe that leadership means standing up when it's hardest, tap that like button. Now let's go back to that moment. 1:56 p.m. Central Time Gate, C-17, Chicago Midway Airport. Maya Jackson wasn't flying in her usual tailored suit. She dressed down that day, casual but sharp. Dark jeans, black blazer, low heels, the kind of outfit that didn't scream power, but whispered confidence after a 3-hour weather delay. She stepped aboard the Pinnacle Airlines flight to Austin, not as CEO, but as a passenger, a paying customer in seat 1A. Her goal was simple: to travel undercover and experience what so many others had reported. Subtle discrimination, icy tone, invasive challenges, and sudden errors in ticketing. She'd read the complaints, she'd seen the Reddit threads. One TikTok clip had shown a black woman's first-class boarding pass being scanned and rejected until a white passenger behind her intervened. Maya had seen enough, so she booked this flight herself. No assistant, no fanfare, just her black backpack, and a mission. But before she could even sit down, Heather Bishop appeared, white mid-30s sharp ponytail, that artificial hospitality tone already wearing thin. "You'll need to put that bag up top," she said. Eyes narrowed. Maya responded calmly. "If there's space, I will. Otherwise, I need access to it for my laptop and iPad." The backpack wasn't oversized. It was neatly tucked under 1A, as any frequent flyer would do. But Heather didn't budge. Just then, a voice behind Maya chimed in. "Don't touch my bag," barked Richard Sterling, 62, white-gray hair, gold cufflinks. His roller bag was in the overhead bin near 1A. His wife Carol chimed in too. "She's making a scene." Maya hadn't moved, hadn't raised her voice, hadn't even made eye contact with them. But the Sterlings' longtime VIPs on the airline weren't used to sharing space, especially not with someone like her. Another flight attendant, Jessica Dunn, arrived slightly younger than Heather, same energy. "Ma'am," Jessica said curtly, "you don't belong in this seat. Are you sure you're in the right cabin?" Maya handed her boarding pass, seat 1A, printed clearly. Jessica frowned. Must be a glitch. "Let me double-check." Within seconds, the crew started murmuring. Heather looked at the ticket, then at Maya. "Where did you purchase this?" she asked, like Maya had faked it. "Online like everyone else," Maya answered. "Please let me sit down." That's when it started to get loud. Heather turned to the front of the plane and signaled the captain. A voice came over the intercom. "Captain Robert Evans, 52 Texas drawl, barely masked. Crew enforce standard protocol, no disruptions in boarding." That disruption was Maya placing a backpack under her seat. That's all it took. Across the aisle in 1B sat Daniel Carter, a black software engineer from Wisconsin who had just started recording. Phone held low, camera pointed steadily. He whispered into the mic, "She's literally just sitting in first class. This is wild." He posted the clip to TikTok and X with the caption, "Black CEO kicked out for being black." It had 10,000 views before the doors even closed. Back at row 1, Heather crossed her arms. "You can either check the bag or move to economy," Jessica added. "We have high-value clients in this cabin." Maya paused, her voice calm, steady. "I am a high-value client." Richard, overhearing, scoffed. "She's threatening us," Carol added. "I feel unsafe." Heather looked at Maya with finality. "Ma'am, move your bag or move your seat." Maya refused. "I have expensive equipment in that bag. I'm keeping it close." Heather leaned in. "Then you're non-compliant. We may have to remove you." Daniel's phone captured it all. He whispered again. "She's calm. They're losing it." Chloe Ross, Maya's assistant, was already on the phone, still back in the terminal. "I'm getting the board on the line," she said. "Stay put." Around them, a few passengers started to murmur. A man in 2C leaned forward. "What's going on?" a woman in 3A muttered. "This isn't the first time I've seen this." Then came the insult that triggered a shift, Jessica said under her breath, barely audible but caught on Daniel's recording. "She's not our type." Maya heard it. So did Daniel. He repeated it into the mic. "You heard that right?" she said. "Not our type." Maya turned toward Heather. "You just crossed a line." Heather stiffened, then looked down at the boarding pass. "Actually, this may be invalid. It's not showing up in the system." Maya raised an eyebrow. "It was confirmed an hour ago." "Try again." Heather didn't. She just handed it back, then motioned toward the rear of the plane. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." Behind them, Richard crossed his arms. "I won't fly with her on board." Carol nodded. "Neither will I." Daniel's caption changed. "Passengers threaten to deboard if black woman isn't removed. Still calm, still seated." Chloe's voice came through Maya's earpiece. "Board members are online, confirmed you're not moving." Maya looked up at Heather, then down at her bag. She didn't yell, she didn't plead. She simply said, "Heather, I suggest you rethink this." Heather leaned closer, "And I suggest you get out of this seat." That's when Daniel turned the phone toward himself. "This isn't customer service. This is racism, and it's about to blow up." The video hit 5,000 views before takeoff, and before the seatbelt sign ever turned on, everything changed. Heather's voice sharpened like the edge of a knife. "This isn't your place. Ma'am, this cabin is for first-class passengers." Maya Jackson blinked calmly. "And I am one," she replied, still seated in 1A, still composed, though the tension around her was thick enough to choke on. Heather crossed her arms. "You're causing a disturbance." Across the aisle, Jessica Dunn, equally firm, added, "You need to go back to economy. This is escalating." Escalating Maya had yet to raise her voice, yet somehow the mere fact that she refused to move was deemed a threat. Richard Sterling leaned in again. "She's racist," he barked, with the self-righteous confidence of someone who'd never been challenged. Carol Sterling fanned herself dramatically and added, "She's making everyone uncomfortable." Daniel Carter, still recording from 1B, looked around in disbelief. "Unbelievable," he muttered into his phone. His latest caption read, "White couple calls black woman racist after she refuses to give up first-class seat. You can't make this up." The video hit 100K views in just 6 minutes. A woman 2 rows back tapped her husband's arm. "You remember that post I showed you, same airline?" He nodded grimly. Back at the front of the cabin, Chloe Ross had reached 2 Pinnacle Airlines board members and was whispering into her Bluetooth. "She's being targeted. You need to act fast," she said. A few passengers began murmuring louder now, aware of Maya's identity. though not everyone had pieced it together. Daniel spoke up again, this time louder. She's the CEO. Folks, I looked her up. That's Maya Jackson, Pinnacle Airlines. Heather whipped her head toward him. Excuse me, sir, this doesn't involve you. It does now, Daniel snapped back. You're harassing a paying customer. You're about to go viral for all the wrong reasons. Maya, still seated, glanced at her backpack under 1A. Inside that bag is a MacBook, a company-issued iPad, and a few sensitive documents. If you think I'm leaving it unattended, think again. Heather narrowed her eyes. Protocol is protocol. Maya didn't flinch. And discrimination is discrimination. I'm not moving by now. The video was spreading beyond TikTok. A screenshot had made it to X, formerly Twitter, and comments were pouring in. How many times do we have to go through this? You'd think a CEO would be treated better. But no, she's black. That airline's got a real problem. Then came the memory, the sting from 14 years earlier, when Maya, just 28, stood in front of an investor panel and was told she wasn't the right face for a tech startup. It was the first time she'd heard the phrase optics used as a weapon. That humiliation, that exclusion was part of what had driven her to build her career from the ground up, eventually becoming Pinnacle Airlines' second largest shareholder, and now. Here she was being told again that she didn't belong a different setting, the same shadow. Daniel was now live streaming. I don't care if I miss my connection. People need to see this. She's done nothing wrong. Heather, visibly flustered, said this isn't about race. Jessica cut in louder. You people always play the race card. The cabin went silent. That was the moment. Even some of the passengers who had stayed quiet began to shift in their seats. One woman pulled out her phone. Another man started recording. Maya took a breath. Heather, verify my ticket again. Heather huffed. I told you it's not in the system. Then call your supervisor. Maya replied. Because I have confirmation on my phone and so does my assistant. Chloe, still outside the cabin, said over the line. They're stalling. The board is furious. Keep recording. Jessica tried to block Daniel's camera with her hand. Sir, filming isn't allowed. It's allowed when someone's being discriminated against, he replied. And this isn't your airline, it's hers. Heather turned red. You're delaying this flight, Maya replied. No, you are from the intercom. Captain Robert Evans chimed in again. Cabin crew resolve the issue or begin offboarding. Daniel laughed dryly. You mean kick the black woman off the plane so we can take off on time? That's what this is, right? A woman behind him said, She's not the problem. Another voice chimed in. This whole thing feels wrong. Then Chloe overheard something through the open cabin door. Jessica muttering to Heather, the board's not going to like this. We should have prioritized someone less controversial. Chloe's eyes widened. Got it, she said, recording it on her end. That's the lawsuit quote. She texted the recording to a Pinnacle board member along with a single line. They're admitting bias out loud. Maya stood up not to leave, but to make her point clear. Let me say this plainly. You're targeting me not because of protocol, but because of who I am and how I look. You're assuming I don't belong here. Despite clear documentation, that's discrimination. Daniel raised his voice, and they just admitted it. I heard it, we all did. Jessica glared at him. You don't understand how this works. I understand enough, he said, flipping his screen toward her. Say hi to the internet. The video crossed 250K views by that point. The comments were pouring in, furious, relentless. Fire them, sue the airline. She's the CEO. This is insane, Heather stammered, trying to keep control. We're following procedure, but the narrative had already shifted. The passengers knew, the viewers knew, and the truth was out. Chloe, now boarding the plane herself, stepped into the first-class cabin flanked by a gate agent. That woman, she said, pointing at Maya, is Maya Jackson, our CEO, and this footage, she added, holding up her phone, is now in the hands of the board, and legal. A hush fell over the row. Jessica backed away. Heather looked stunned. Captain Evans's voice came again. "Miss Ross, please step out of the cockpit." "No," Chloe replied. "I'm here under board orders and we have a problem." Maya looked around at the passengers. Her voice didn't waver. "Now everyone here knows exactly what kind of airline this is, at least under your watch," Jessica said quietly. "You're twisting this," Daniel cut in. "No, you twisted it. You flagged her ticket. You called her a threat, and now you're caught." At that exact moment, his phone vibrated. He looked down 500,000 views, and it's only been 10 minutes. Maya sat back down in 1A, calm, grounded. Chloe stood beside her. "Board is watching," she said. "They're on a call right now. Get ready." Heather, visibly shaken, whispered something to Jessica, who then walked to the back of the cabin. A ripple of tension moved through the plane, but no one moved to deboard. Not now, not after what they'd seen. Maya closed her eyes for a second, letting the noise settle. Then she opened them. 12 minutes, she whispered to herself. That's all it took by minute 12. Everything was unraveling. Daniel Carter lowered his phone for a moment and turned toward Maya. "They're editing your reservation now." "I just saw it." Maya's brows narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "They just reassigned your seat to someone else in the system," he said, holding up the airline's passenger app on his phone. "It shows 1A is vacant now. You've been moved to 22C, middle seat back of the plane." Maya stared at the screen. "That's deliberate tampering." Daniel nodded. "And I've got a screen recording of the update before she could respond." Heather came storming back to the front of the cabin, followed closely by Captain Robert Evans, now standing tall in the aisle with his pilot cap tilted just slightly forward like a shield. "Miss," he began in a flat tone, "you're being asked to deplane immediately." Maya didn't move. "For what reason? Passenger disruption and crew non-compliance." Robert didn't meet her eyes. "We've made the decision for the safety of the flight." Maya let out the faintest breath. "You're removing me for sitting in my assigned seat and placing my bag under the seat in front of me," Ma'am Jessica interrupted from behind him. "We've asked nicely. We're following protocol." Maya looked from Robert to Heather, then to Jessica, then calmly to Chloe. "Let me guess," she said quietly. "No one has even checked the internal flagging system, because if you had, you'd know I have priority clearance executive override level, meaning I belong exactly where I'm seated." Heather rolled her eyes. "Not according to what I see." "Because you just altered it," Chloe fired back. "And we have proof. Your whole crew's about to be on the front page of every aviation watchdog in the country." Robert ignored her. "I'm instructing ground security to assist. You need to leave now." But as he turned toward the flight deck, several first-class passengers stood up. One woman in 2D said she hasn't done a thing wrong. Another man in 3A said this is racial profiling, plain and simple. Jessica tried to calm them, hands raised. "Please stay seated, this doesn't involve you." But it did, now everyone had seen it. And when Richard Sterling stood up, jabbing his finger toward Maya, shouting, "I feel threatened by her," the entire cabin tensed. Carol added with a practiced gasp, "She's hostile." Daniel couldn't take it anymore. "This is what they do, twist it, make us look dangerous while we're quiet." She hasn't raised her voice once. Maya stayed seated back, straight hands in her lap. "Robert," she said calmly, "if you remove me, you're not just removing a passenger. You're removing your boss." He hesitated. "What's that supposed to mean?" Chloe stepped forward. "You're talking to Maya Jackson, CEO of Pinnacle Airlines and the second largest shareholder in the company. She has full authority over in-flight policy security decisions and disciplinary protocol silence." Heather blinked. "Wait, what?" "You heard me," Chloe said. "She's your boss. And now you've tried to delete her from the system and physically remove her without cause. Robert tried to recover. This is a misunderstanding. We were following procedure. Your procedure, Daniel said, raising his phone again, is being broadcast live to 300,000 people. He turned his screen around. The count ticked up 301K, 305K, 312K. Every second you double down makes it worse. Jessica stepped forward, red-faced. This is out of control. No, Maya said, standing now. It's finally under control because now it's out in the open. Robert's earpiece crackled. A voice from the tower cut in. Captain Evans' delay authorization is now on hold pending corporate communication. Do not proceed with removal. Chloe smiled faintly. That would be the board calling. A few passengers clapped, hesitant but real. The man in 3A raised his voice. Leave her alone. She paid for her seat. She deserves respect. Heather suddenly looked small. Jessica avoided eye contact altogether. Daniel turned to the aisle. And guess what? Her boarding pass wasn't invalid. You flagged it manually. I watched you. You can't prove that, Heather muttered. We can, Chloe said, holding up her phone. Your own voice. We recorded you discussing it with Jessica, saying she wasn't your type. You also admitted the Sterling's complaint played a role in how you responded. Heather's mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out, Jessica whispered. You can't use that against us. Too late, Maya said. It's already been submitted to the board, along with the footage including when Jessica shoved me in the aisle earlier. Daniel nodded. I've got that too, time-stamped and geotagged. Robert, finally realizing the depth of the situation, took off his cap. Look, maybe we can de-escalate. No, Maya said firmly. You escalated this. You backed it. You let them harass me. And when you had a chance to step up, you chose silence. That ends now. She turned toward Chloe. Contact legal. I want the crew names logged, every one of them. Already done, Chloe replied. Richard and Susan are on standby for a call. Robert looked toward the exit door, almost as if calculating how fast he could leave. Heather took a step back. Jessica muttered something under her breath and moved toward the galley. The passengers didn't cheer, but their relief was palpable. It was over, at least this part. Maya turned slowly and sat back in 1A. She looked down at her backpack, untouched. This, she said quietly to no one in particular, was never about the bag. Chloe sat beside her in 1B, where Daniel had now swapped seats with a passenger from the back. We've got the crew's names, and the footage is climbing fast. 1 million in 20 minutes, Daniel said. Titles trending now. Black CEO kicked out for being black. Maya nodded, calm as ever. Let them see. Let everyone see. And in that moment, sitting upright in the very seat, someone tried to erase her from Maya Jackson, reclaimed not just her place on the flight, but her power. Fully, unapologetically, and on her own terms. The air in the cabin had shifted. What started as a quiet humiliation had turned into a full-blown crisis. And not just for the flight, but for the entire airline. Heather Bishop was now pacing near the front galley, her eyes darting between the cabin door and the flight deck. As if trying to find an escape route that didn't exist, Jessica Dunn, equally rattled, whispered into her radio headset, trying to find someone, anyone, who could clean up the mess they'd helped create. But it was already far too late. Daniel Carter, still holding his phone steady, turned slightly and spoke clearly for everyone to hear. I just uploaded the second clip, shows Heather telling Jessica to get her off this plane, and Jessica shoving Maya into the aisle. Time-stamped, unedited, it's already hit 5 million views. A woman from row 4 gasped. 5 million, another man muttered. Well, good, they need to be held accountable. Maya didn't say much. She sat still in seat 1A, hands folded over her knees, eyes fixed forward. Not angry, not scared, just resolute every so often. She glanced at Chloe, who gave her a quick nod. Confirmation that corporate was engaged and the board was watching the live stream in real time. But then came the final straw. As Heather leaned over to whisper to Jessica near the galley, Daniel's mic picked up the words, "This is why we screen passengers. Less risk with our regulars. She never should have gotten through." That line, those exact words, would make the front page of 3 news sites by nightfall. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was policy, or at the very least behavior rooted in what the crew had been trained to believe was acceptable. Maya turned slowly toward them, her voice steady. "You're saying the quiet part out loud." Heather stiffened. "That wasn't directed at you." "But it was about me," Maya replied. "And now the world heard it," Daniel added. "The whole less risk with regulars bit. That's not something you just make up on the spot. That's something someone taught you." Jessica crossed her arms. "You're twisting this." "No," Chloe said, stepping in. "We're clarifying it loudly by now." Multiple passengers were standing, some quietly filming, others just listening. A man in row 5 said, "I've flown this airline for years." "But if this is what's behind the curtain, I'm done," another woman added. "I've seen it too. It's always subtle until someone calls it out." Heather tried to reassert herself. "This is protocol. I followed the training." "Exactly," Maya said. "And that's the problem." Robert Evans reappeared at the front of the plane, arms folded, jaw tight. "Everyone needs to return to their seats, so we can move forward." "You want us to move forward," Daniel replied, "after you tried to remove the CEO and tampered with her reservation." "Sir, I'm not discussing this with passengers," Robert said. "You're not?" Maya cut in. "You're discussing it with your boss." Robert stared at her. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," she replied. "And now you're standing here trying to act like this didn't happen." Chloe, flipping through her phone, said, "The board wants a statement public and immediate." Maya nodded. "They'll get one." Jessica, now visibly nervous, snapped at Daniel. "Stop filming. You're interfering with flight operations." "No," he said plainly. "I'm documenting truth. You interfered with operations when you decided her skin color meant she didn't belong here." A few passengers clapped. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Heather, now sweating, looked to Robert. "What do we do?" Robert replied, flatly. "We follow procedure." "What procedure?" Maya asked. "Because so far it looks like the only procedure you know is how to cover your tracks." Heather's voice cracked. "I was just doing what we were trained to do." Daniel's voice rose, steady and sharp. "And what exactly were you trained to do? Profile people, ignore confirmed tickets. Call someone dangerous because they make you uncomfortable." The cabin went quiet again, not from fear, but from realization. Maya took a breath. "Let me be very clear, this is bigger than you." "Heather, it's bigger than Jessica and even Robert. This is about a pattern, one that's gone unchecked for too long," Daniel added. "That's what people have been saying online for years. And now we have faces. We have voices. We have proof." Chloe stepped forward. "The board has asked for full names of every crew member involved. The audit begins today." Jessica turned pale. "Audit," Heather whispered. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Maya replied. "And while we're at it, we'll be reviewing the training modules that told you people like me don't belong in first class." Daniel looked toward the back. "I think the whole plane would support that." A chorus of agreement rippled through the cabin. Robert finally spoke. "This is becoming unmanageable. We need to deplane and reset." "No," Maya said. "We fly with a new crew, or this flight doesn't move." Chloe echoed her. You've lost the confidence of the passengers and of leadership. Step aside. Robert's earpiece crackled again. This time the voice from the tower was direct. Captain Evans, be advised. Your authority is temporarily suspended pending internal review. A supervisory team is en route. Heather sank into a jump seat, stunned. Jessica backed toward the galley. Daniel stood now facing the row of cameras and passengers. Let the record show. This is how we change things. Not by yelling, not by threats, but by standing up calmly, clearly, and with the truth. Chloe looked to Maya. It's yours now. Maya stood strong, composed. Heather Bishop, Jessica Dunn. Captain Evans. You are hereby relieved of your duties, effective immediately pending formal review and permanent termination. Your conduct violated not only company policy, but basic decency. You will exit this aircraft before we take off. Gasps rang out from every row. Heather began to protest. This isn't fair. Fair, Maya said, stepping forward, is when every passenger is treated with respect. You made your choice. Now live with it, Jessica whispered. You're destroying our careers. No, Maya said. You destroyed them the moment you decided I didn't belong here. Daniel from behind her added softly. And now millions of people agree. The mood shifted again, this time from tension to resolution. A calm spread across the cabin, the passengers, the crew, the viewers online. Everyone had seen enough. And the woman they tried to dismiss had just turned 12 minutes of humiliation into the beginning of a reckoning. Maya didn't rush her words. She didn't need to. The power in her voice came not from volume, but from certainty. Heather Bishop, Jessica Dunn, Captain Robert Evans. As of this moment, your employment with Pinnacle Airlines is terminated. The silence in the cabin was immediate and total. You could hear the whir of the ventilation, the soft buzz of overhead lights, and the stunned breath that Jessica took as if she didn't quite believe what she'd just heard. Terminated, Jessica said, almost in a whisper. You can't do that. I just did, Maya replied, still calm, still composed. You not only violated protocol, you violated every principle this company claims to stand for. You acted with bias, you manipulated systems, and you put our reputation and our passengers at risk. Heather's jaw clenched as her face turned a deep red. We were just trying to follow procedure, Richard said. I don't work for Richard Sterling. Maya cut in. I run this airline and I will not allow any customer, I don't care who they are, how long they've been flying with us, or how much they pay to dictate who deserves to be treated like a person. Robert Evans stood stiffly, his arms behind his back, like he was trying to keep from falling apart. You've just embarrassed this airline, he said. No, Maya responded without hesitation. You did. I'm just cleaning it up. Chloe Ross stepped forward, handing each of them a printed form with their names already typed across the top. This is your official notice of suspension, effective immediately. A formal termination letter will follow, pending a final board review. Security will escort you off the aircraft. Heather took the paper, barely glancing at it. This isn't over, she muttered. You think you're safe because you've got a title. Maya looked her square in the eye. No, I'm not safe because of my title. I'm accountable because of it. That's the difference between us. The murmurs in the cabin started to rise, not confusion anymore, but applause. Soft at first, then louder. The woman in 2D began clapping slowly, then the man in 3A followed. And soon the entire front of the aircraft was filled with passengers clapping, nodding, and quietly saying thank you, as if justice had somehow arrived in real time. Just then, board members Anthony Ellison and Sarah Caldwell appeared at the front of the cabin, having boarded discreetly through the forward jet bridge. Anthony, in a navy blazer and rimless glasses, stepped forward with a nod to Maya. "We've reviewed the footage," he said clearly. "We've spoken to Tower Command and we've seen the statements. On behalf of the Pinnacle Board, I want to offer you and every passenger on this flight a formal apology." Sarah, standing beside him in a charcoal suit, added, "This incident does not reflect the values we claim to uphold. And for that, we are not only sorry, we are prepared to take action." Maya offered a slight nod, but didn't smile. She wasn't interested in ceremony. She was here to restore order. "I want retraining implemented immediately," she said. "I want a full audit of crew conduct and the training protocols that enabled this behavior. And I want all flagged incidents from the past 3 years reopened for review. If we're going to be better, we're going to be honest first." Anthony looked impressed. "Agreed, we'll begin before day's end." Meanwhile, Daniel Carter, who had stepped quietly into the background, checked his phone. "We're at 20 million views," he announced, more to the room than to anyone in particular. "They're calling it the Gate 1A Reckoning. It's on 3 national trending lists. Aviation watchdogs are already tagging Pinnacle in accountability posts." Maya turned to him. "Good, let them. We're not hiding this." Jessica, who had remained strangely silent, suddenly said under her breath, "You don't understand. We were trying to keep things calm. Richard said he felt unsafe." "So you punished me for his fear?" Maya asked, her voice rising slightly for the first time. "You dehumanized a paying passenger because someone else didn't like the color of her skin." Jessica looked down. "We thought, no," Maya said. "You didn't think at all, and now you've answered for it." Heather, unable to stay silent any longer, blurted out, "You're just doing this for PR. This is about damage control. This is about accountability," Maya said firmly. "Something you clearly never learned." Sarah Caldwell stepped in now, looking directly at Heather. "As of now, you are not to speak to any other employee or passenger. You'll be escorted off and contacted by legal." Daniel's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and his eyes widened slightly. "It just hit CNN and there's a call from NPR. They want to talk to you." "Maya." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to the passengers and said, "I want to personally apologize to everyone here for what you witnessed today. No one should have to see what you saw. I hope you'll give us the chance to rebuild your trust." The passengers murmured in agreement. A woman in 4C said, "Thank you for not walking away." Another man added, "Took guts to do that here in real time." Maya nodded once more. "This is where it happens, not in press releases, not in offices, but in places like this where people think they can get away with things because no one's watching while someone was." Chloe approached again. Richard Sterling made another statement to the gate agent. "He's demanding compensation." Maya didn't hesitate, refund him and blacklist him. Anthony blinked blacklist. "Yes," she said. "Let him take his entitlement to another airline." A beat of silence. Then Anthony nodded, understood. Sarah turned back to Maya. "Anything else you want us to know?" "Yes," Maya said. "Don't just fire people, fix the route. Look into the training that tells staff to judge passengers based on instinct. That's not instinct. It's prejudice." Heather, from her seat near the galley, suddenly murmured, "Richard said you were intimidating. I didn't think." "That's the problem," Maya replied one last time. "You didn't think you followed the path of least resistance, and it cost you everything." The plane doors opened, security entered quietly, and escorted Heather, Jessica, and Robert off the aircraft. No yelling, no handcuffs, just the quiet shame of people who finally had to face the consequences of their actions. Daniel updated the video's caption, "CEO fires entire crew on the spot. Pinnacle Airlines just changed overnight and outside on the tarmac." A storm that had once delayed takeoff was clearing literally and metaphorically by the time the flight finally pushed back from the gate. 2 hours and 47 minutes after its original departure time, the damage had already been done, but so had the first steps toward real repair. Pinnacle Airlines stock had dropped 15% in just under 4 hours, not because of a mechanical issue, not because of earnings, but because a video just over 3 minutes long had laid bare something Wall Street couldn't ignore: leadership failure, racial profiling, and a brewing PR nightmare on a first-class aisle. But strangely, despite the plummet, investors weren't panicking. In fact, by the end of the trading day, Pinnacle's stock had started to stabilize, nudged upward by a wave of support for Maya Jackson's swift, no-nonsense action. CNN Business ran the headline, "Black CEO Fires Crew. In real time, market reacts to transparency." Meanwhile, on the flight itself, Maya remained seated in 1A, her expression composed, but her voice a little softer now, the adrenaline wearing off. Chloe leaned in from 1B, whispering, "You did exactly what you needed to do. I did what anyone with power should do." Maya answered quietly, "The only difference is I didn't look away." Daniel Carter, now a familiar face across millions of screens, walked up from the rear of the plane where he'd voluntarily taken a middle seat to let Chloe sit up front. "Your video just crossed 35 million, he said. "This is national now. They're calling it the first-class reckoning." Maya nodded, eyes scanning the cabin. The passengers were finally at ease. Conversations had softened. Tension had melted. Even the gate agents at Austin were reportedly preparing a small reception to welcome Maya on arrival. Quietly instructed by Sarah Caldwell herself. But this wasn't about celebration. It was about follow-through. "First thing tomorrow," Maya said. "I want a new crew assigned to Pinnacle's internal audit department. We're not letting this get buried under PR spin. We go deeper." Chloe made a note, already pulled resumes from Lisa Torres and Mark Evans, diverse, experienced, and outspoken. "They're waiting on standby." Maya smiled faintly. "Tell them they're hired." Daniel grinned. "You move fast. I don't believe in dragging my feet when justice is on the line," she replied. "Especially when people think they can get away with things because it's not in writing." Just then, a message came through to Chloe's phone. Anthony just found something. She handed Maya the screen. It was a forwarded internal memo dated 3 months earlier. From a mid-level training manager, it outlined passenger profiling heuristics, encouraging staff to note behaviors and appearance that may not align with typical first-class standards. Maya blinked, reading that phrase again. Not align with typical first-class standards. "They printed this?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "It was used in 2 new hire briefings," Chloe said. "We have it on record a whistleblower just sent a photo." Maya passed the phone back. "Then we shut that entire training protocol down immediately. Every airport, every crew base, start with Chicago." Daniel, overhearing, nodded. "You don't just fix a broken wheel, you replace the axle." Maya looked at him, appreciating the metaphor exactly in the cabin. A few passengers clapped quietly again, this time, less for the drama and more for the calm that had finally settled. Chloe turned and gave Maya a small update. "The 3 crew members have been fully removed from the system. HR confirmed their badges have been deactivated. The union's been notified." "Good," Maya said. "And don't let anyone try to reassign them elsewhere. No reshuffling. We don't move problems, we solve them." Daniel leaned against the bulkhead. "You realize what you just did, right? You didn't just fire 3 people. You changed how people see accountability. You made it real." Maya let that sit for a moment, not out of pride, but gravity. "We say 0 tolerance all the time," she said. "Today we proved we meant it." Outside the window, the clouds had cleared. The Texas sun was strong. The flight was finally en route to Austin, and in the quiet hum of the cabin, the woman who'd been told to leave her seat now sat in it, not just as a passenger, but as a leader who refused to look away when the moment came. The next morning, as sunlight poured into the 14th floor conference room of Pinnacle Airlines' Chicago headquarters, Maya Jackson stood alone for a brief moment, watching the downtown skyline shift in the glass. The events of the previous day had already become a national headline. But for Maya, the work had only just begun. At exactly 9 a.m., she opened the emergency leadership meeting surrounded by board members, legal advisors, and the newly appointed audit team, Lisa Torres and Mark Evans, both of whom had already flown in from New York and San Diego overnight. "This isn't about saving face," Maya said firmly as she addressed the room. "This is about facing the truth." Around her, the tone was sober but ready. She laid out a sweeping reform package, mandatory anti-bias retraining for every flight crew gate agent and customer service rep across all hubs, a full audit of passenger complaint records from the past 5 years, and a permanent independent review board staffed with professionals outside the company to monitor employee conduct policy changes and real-time complaints. "We can't rely on internal promises anymore," she said. "The trust of the public won't be won back by statements. It'll be won by change they can see and feel, and the public was watching closely." Daniel Carter's original video had now crossed 50 million views, and news outlets from MSNBC to NPR were covering the incident under a new headline: "CEO fired crew mid-flight. Is this the future of corporate accountability?" Maya, now back in her familiar suit, charcoal gray with a burgundy blouse, took no victory laps. There were no celebratory handshakes, no interviews. "We don't pat ourselves on the back for doing what's right," she told a staffer when asked if she'd speak at a press conference. "We just do it, and then we keep doing it." That same morning at O'Hare and LAX, crew members arrived to see new signage posted in every break room. "Respect is not optional. Every passenger deserves dignity." The message was clear, and it had her signature printed at the bottom. Meanwhile, back in Austin, Sarah Caldwell oversaw the security footage review and confirmed what Daniel had reported earlier. The internal seating system had indeed been tampered with mid-boarding, and the crew had flagged Maya's name manually. They tried to erase her. Sarah told the board quietly, without knowing she was the one who signs their paychecks. But Maya didn't want revenge. She wanted structure, clarity, accountability. "Let this be the line," she said in the boardroom. "Not the beginning of outrage, the beginning of responsibility." By midweek, the airline's social media channels had shifted tone instead of spin. They posted a message in plain text. "We failed, we listened, we're acting. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you, passengers. We'll do better." It was shared 1.6 million times. More than a dozen companies. Some competitors followed suit, posting their own versions of apology and reflection. In the days that followed, Maya received letters from school teachers in Detroit, retired pilots in Georgia, college students in Chicago. One message came handwritten from a black woman in her 80s who simply wrote, "You did what we prayed someone would finally do. Thank you for standing in that aisle." But perhaps the most powerful moment came not from the public or press, but inside the company itself. A junior flight attendant named Aaliyah, just 23, and fresh out of training, stood during a company forum and asked, "What would you say to someone like me? Someone just starting who's afraid to speak up when they see something wrong?" Maya didn't hesitate. "You speak anyway," she said, "even if your voice shakes. Even if no one joins you at first. Because when you speak with integrity, you're never really alone. Someone's watching, someone's listening, and sometimes someone's filming." That line would become quoted, printed, and reposted everywhere from LinkedIn to church bulletins. It wasn't just a corporate message, it was a moral one. In the weeks that followed, Pinnacle's internal policies were rewritten from the ground up. Anonymous reporting channels were expanded. Bonus structures were restructured to include diversity metrics and customer satisfaction scores. And all new hires, regardless of position, would be required to watch a training module titled Seat 1A, The Power of Presence, based on the incident that had reshaped the airline overnight. Maya refused all offers for interviews even after Forbes named her one of the most influential CEOs of the year. "Let the work speak," she told her assistant, and it did loudly. 6 months later, as she boarded another Pinnacle flight, this time in silence, no cameras, no fanfare, Maya placed her bag beneath Seat 1A. The flight attendant approached with a smile and simply said, "Welcome aboard, Ms. Jackson." And for the first time in a long time, that felt exactly right.